Hello, welcome to the Peaceful Wood Turner. I was out in the park looking for wood that was dead lying around that I could possibly make use of. There's an area that I can go to where people do kind of dump stuff. It's not really a log dump per se, it's just more people getting rid of stuff that they figure isn't going to be a problem in the park. So I'm kind of solving two problems. I'm finding wood that I can use, and at the same time I'm making sure that there's stuff that's shouldn't be in the park coming out of the park. People dump things like their old Christmas trees, and the landscapers dump stuff in there sometimes. And this is kind of in that category. Somebody cut this off of something at some point, and I think it's a type of cedar or juniper, judging by the bark. I did a little bit of looking up and stuff, and there's really not a whole lot of difference between the two. So I like how it feels. It's very dry. It's very lightweight. I'm gonna trim it off so that I can have something I can actually turn, and then we'll get it made into something. Alright, I took off lots and lots of bark. Tried to get as much of the loose stuff off as I could. I took off all sorts of burrs and knots and everything else. There are still some rough spots. I'm just going to start rounding this down now and getting it smooth before I start really turning. When I mounted it up on the lathe, I thought I was going to have a lot of shake and shimmy. So I actually put it on here and I sped the RPMs up slowly, just standing back from it and watching what it was going to do, and it didn't really shake at all. I was really surprised. So I'm going to start at a relatively low speed even so, but I feel pretty confident that this is going to stay nice and stable. Well, Juniper or cedar, it smells really nice, whatever it is. Hoping as I get deeper in that I don't have quite so much tearing with all this. It really looks like it wants to just come apart. So I'm questioning whether or not I'm going to be able to get a smooth finish on this at all, but the only way to find out is to try. So I kind of want to save the grain that's up here, but I don't think it's worth losing so much to try to get it down to round. I'm going to round it a little bit more and figure out where I'm going to take it off. Let's see how that looks. It's coming close to being something nice. I think I'm going to take it down right about here, and that'll give me a spot to work with where I can maybe save some of this. Alright, I'm just going to cut that off, and we'll get going again. So I decided I'm going to make a lidded box out of this section, and so what I want to do is just smooth it down a little bit and get my size right for my chuck. Alright, just going to check my... But this will fit nicely in the chuck, so I'm just going to part it, and that way I can have a nice straight base and it'll go in nice and smooth. Alright, we're mounted in the chuck, and I'm going to smooth it off a bit, start shaping my top, and then I'll part that off after I get that shaped a bit more. pretty close to the shape I want. I'm liking the changes in colors. I'm just going to use the skew and try to smooth it down a little bit, and then I'll be able to take my lid off. Well, I'll first finish the finial on the lid, and then I'll take the lid off. You know what, I was going to make a small finial, kind of matching a box I've done before, but there's some really neat character right here. I don't want to lose that, so I'm just going to round this top off, make it more of a knob at the top, and trim it down a little bit more on the inside here, but really leave a good bit of this if I can. Well, it's a little bit of a dent right there, so I'll smooth that a bit more if I can without losing much. So no matter how much I work it, it just tears out right there. So I'm going to work it from in here and see what I can get. That's the area I was trying to save, but it's just going to tear out every time. You can see how soft it is. I'm going to have to part that off. Alright, I've got my mini parting tool. Well, it's a good thing I didn't keep going with that, huh? If I kept going trying to save that section, I would have had problems. I'm just going to part it off even further down. Alright. I'm going to try again with shaping a top up here. I still want it to have a little bit of a finial, but I'll have to see what happens now. Yeah, it's a heavy bark inclusion. That's gonna be tricky. You know what? I'm going to leave that the way it is. I'm going to finish off the edges a little bit and part this off. And either I'll have a lid or I won't. So it's got that definite inclusion there, but I might be able to do something with that to give it some character afterwards. What I'm going to do now is part it off here, and I tried to taper this down so that it would actually be able to fit inside as I finish it off. So I'm going to part it off right about there. I'm going to finish the rest of that with the saw. Well, it's parted off, and as you can see, it's got some, let's just say, character. I'm going to be really careful with that because it feels like it's pretty weak. And I'm going to hollow this out. I'm just going to use a Forstner bit to do it. I don't want to take any chances of getting excessive vibration because I think this occlusion is actually kind of making this little line right here, and I don't want there to be a crack. Alright, so I skipped a little bit for you. I have carefully progressed through a variety of sizes of reinforcement bits up to what I now have, which is the 1 3/4 inch. And that's pretty much the maximum my hole is going to be. It's going to take a couple passes to really get it in deep enough, but lucky me, the measurement from the tip to right here at the base of the shaft is exactly the depth I want to go. So this works out really well. And I'm only going about 580 RPM. The maximum speed for these bits is about 700. And I just want to take it slow and keep everything nice and cool. Oh, I do love the forcemeat bits, man. They take it out nicely. That's really good. So my next step is going to be to just kind of clean up the edges a little bit, and I'm going to do a little bit of sanding and trimming on the lid. I'm figuring once I get this sanded a little bit, it should fit nice right in there. Just basically sit flush inside and hopefully line up nicely. Okay, took a little playing with it, trying to get it all to go together, and I was getting really close to having a major problem right here. But I managed to get it so that everything fits together really nicely. It wants to ride up a little bit sometimes depending on how it gets put in, just because there's some flexibility because of this occlusion right here. And as you can see, it did start to come through just a little bit right in there, but not too bad, and really everything lines up nicely. That's really pretty. So what I'm going to do now is just do some final sanding. I'm going to do a 220 grit, and then I'm going to do a 320 grit, and then I'll put on a little bit of a finish before I part off the base. So I like how most of this turned out, but it's got this large hole. It's got one in the bottom too, and these are from the bark inclusion that was in there. So I've been trying to think about how to fill them, whether or not I wanted to fill them, and I decided I do, and green is what kept coming to my mind. So I decided, found an old green bottle, cleaned it all up, took the label off and everything else, so it's pretty much just clean glass, and I think that green is going to look kind of nice in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break it up, and then I'll mix it with some clear epoxy and fill that hole as best I can. Hopefully get it relatively smooth. So I got this heavy paper bag, and it's pretty solid. I don't want anything that's going to break up on me. I've got my eye protection and my hand protection, obviously. And I'm just going to take this and just shatter it. Got it roughly broken down. Take out the neck because I don't want any of these label pieces staying in there. The rest of it's all nice and clean. Gonna break it down a little bit more. See, these big pieces are going to have sharp edges on them no matter what I do, so I really want to break them down small and fine as possible. The smaller it is, the more likely it is to stay covered by the epoxy or to stand down smooth. Little pieces flying out. Good thing I'm wearing my glasses. I'll do a little meditation and walk over this later. What do you think? It's getting pretty fine. Small pieces. And it won't take a whole lot to fill that in. I'll break it down a little more, and then I think I'll try to sift it out some, so I just have the smallest pieces. a pretty good mount. Put the rest of this back in the jar, mix up some epoxy, put it all together. I've got my 2-part mix, rosin and hardener, with dedicated little syringes here. I like doing this because I can use equal amounts without a problem. Didn't get all of it in there. Let's try again. There we go. That felt good. Got my hardener. My rosin is being a little bit finicky, so I'm going to have to use this as a measure. Oops. All right. There we go. Mix it all up. You know, I shouldn't need a lot, but I think I need more than this. So I'm going to do 2 batches. That's a generous amount there. Now, to add my green powder. Add a little bit, stir it in, see how it looks. It's a good start. I think a little more though. As I'm mixing this in, it's almost like putting flour into a batter. It's getting a little thicker each time. And I'm liking that because I think that'll make it a little bit easier to work with and form. My rough start is going to be my base down in there. What I'm kind of hoping is that as this sits against the parchment paper here, it'll create kind of a flat surface on the bottom. I'm filling it in from the bottom first just because the opening is a little larger down here. And that way it'll fall towards the top, but then go right back in. What if I just put a coat of this on the bottom all the way through? I think that's going to look pretty nice once it sets. So now I have the top. And doing it that way gave me a feel for how it's going to work. Just got my finger on the outside here to just kind of seal it a little bit. Let me know when I'm getting it too full. Sets, I can sand the inside pretty smooth. The outside's going to be a lot trickier. Cautious about the rim, because any errant little pieces are just going to mess it up. everything's set up really nice and hard. It's actually been a couple days. I'm going to sand everything now on the top, bottoms, sides, everything else. I'm going to go a little aggressive at first and bring it down from there. So I've got 100 grit on my palm sander. I should have mentioned this before I get too far into this. This is acrylic with pieces of glass in it and everything else, so I really want to be careful. I'm wearing my eye protection, I'm wearing respiratory protection, everything else, because I really don't want to take a chance of breathing in little pieces of glass, you know? Alright, that's smooth. Might hit it again, but I really want to get this other part done. So, now to the lid. Good. Smooth all the way across. I'm going to do a little bit up here, because you can see I've got a little bit of a spillover. Alright, I didn't change the shape too much. I didn't gouge anything, so I call that successful. And everything fits nicely. It's always kind of fun to try to line this one up because the grain is very specific. But all in all, it fits pretty nice. So what I'm going to do now is go through some progressively finer grits of paper and then put some more finish on it.